Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February 10th council meeting. Roll call show that Councillor Osher is absent. Everyone else is in attendance. Agenda review. Don't believe we have any changes to the agenda. So moving on to approval of minutes of January 13th, 2020.
Move approval.
Second.
Any comments, corrections, questions? All right. I'll take a vote on approval of the minutes. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Moving on to public hearings to consider a vitulers license for Nest Coffee LLC, 24 Main Street. Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dave Milan, the Director of Community Development, and regarding this application, I'm here to report that all inspections were complete with no compliance issues found. The taxes and sewer fees are current. Staff recommends approval of the license.
Great, thanks very much. Does anyone wish to speak for or against the issuing of this license? I forgot to bang the gavel, so I'm going to do it now. Close public hearing A.
Thank you.
Public hearing B. To consider a contract zone amendment request by Sons of Carpentry LLC to amend an existing contract zone for 117 through 121 Mill Street to allow for an additional residential unit on the second floor of the structure.
Hey everyone, my name is Kyle Drexler, town planner. So this contract zone request for 117 to 121 Mill Street has gone through council committee, planning board, and then back to council workshop to discuss the planning board public hearing. So just an overview for the project for everyone and everyone at home. This contract zone is an amendment. The original contract zone went into effect in 1995. It was to turn to a 3-story structure that was previously used for entirely residential. The original contract zone was to allow for office space to exist on the first 2 floors of the building and have 1 residential unit on the 3rd floor. In 2010, the owner at the time requested to amend the contract zone to allow for an additional dwelling unit on the 2nd floor of the office because they were having trouble renting out the office space on the 2nd floor. At the time, the town was experiencing more problems when it came to student housing and various other kind of nuisance concerns in regards to that. And at the time, that amendment request did not go through. However, the current owner has now come back with a similar contract zone amendment request to once again add a single dwelling unit to the 2nd floor. So the overall layout of the building would be the 1st floor would be used for commercial office space. The 2nd floor would be used for a single dwelling unit, and the 3rd floor would be also used for a single dwelling unit. This idea and concept kind of aligns with what the comprehensive plan says. So any zoning change that goes before the town, whether it's a contract zone or just a base zoning change, has to kind of meet the ideals of the comprehensive plan. So noting a few things: housing in and near downtown, encouraging mixed uses, including residences in and adjacent to downtown, improve the quality of housing in and around downtown. That kind of directly relates to the goal of this project by the applicant. And the town will assure the ability for Orono downtown to grow in a compact, walkable manner, building on its village architecture and character. This is an existing 3-story structure. The 2nd floor is currently vacant because the applicant has not been able to rent it out for its commercial use. So being able to better utilize it as a additional residential structure will kind of help to create the best use for the building, and allow it to help out the town as well as the applicant. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer. Oh, we've also added to the contract zone language that there would be no access to the roof per public comment made at the planning board meeting.
Great, thanks. Does anyone wish to speak for or against?
I just have one question. Has the fire escape been built already? It's already, everything's ready to rock and roll. It's, okay.
Hearing none. Thank you, Kyle. I will close public hearing B. We'll move on to acknowledgements by council members. We'll start with Terry.
Well, I'm all about the sports this time. I just want to say go blue because UMaine hockey is on a 6-game winning streak, having beat BC and Boston, 4th seed in the country. So that was actually a good wins. But I also want to acknowledge the Orono boys basketball team, the varsity basketball team. They qualified for the preliminaries for the basketball playoffs. They'll be playing, anybody who's interested, they're playing in Winslow this Wednesday.
Thank you. Cheryl? Megan?
I would like to acknowledge our civic duties because we have a busy, this is the last council meeting before our massive early March election situation. So just for the folks playing at home, you should go out on March 3rd and vote in the primary if you're a primary voter. And then you'll probably be caucusing on Sunday the 8th. And then you'll be having your municipal elections on Tuesday, the 10th of March. So we hope to see you at all of those times. And I know that town staff they are on top of it. We have probably, I'm going to go out and say, arguably one of the best clerks in the state. That's what I would say. And she's got a plan, and so it's going to go very smoothly. But it's important to remember to go out and hit all of those days because it's unusual that there would be 3 such things packed into the same basically week. So put them on your calendar.
Tom?
Excuse me. I'd like to acknowledge the passing of 2 longtime Orono residents since our last meeting. Joan Logue, who served for many years as a public health nurse in the town, also served as a school nurse in the Orono School Department, had a long and very productive life, passed away recently. And Jim Treadwell, who was an Orono native, longtime resident of the community, longtime employee at the university, also passed away since our last meeting.
Thank you, Tom. Sam?
Just want to state the obvious, winter's back. Careful out there. I think the town's done a great job. Public Works has done a great job modifying plan of attack to make sure we're all set. And but even tonight, it's pretty slick out there, so be careful.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to unfinished business. I don't believe we have any. And now the consent agenda. I will take a motion to move the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of the consent agenda? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to new business. Order 20-21, order adopting an expansion of the Village Commercial Zoning District to convert 85, 87, 88, and 92 Main Street from medium-density residential to Village Commercial. And it's a planning staff day. Oh, I'll take a motion before Kyle starts.
So moved.
Second.
Everyone. This is for the expansion to the Village Commercial District for the 4 lots along Main Street that way. This has been through council committee, planning board, council workshop, council public hearing, and is now here for adoption. So we've been over this many times. Unless there are any other questions, I think that's it.
Does council have any questions? We had to work this through pretty well. All right. Hearing none. Thank you, Kyle. I'll take a vote on order 20-21. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Order 20-22, order adopting ordinance amendments to the Town of Orono Ordinances, Chapter 18, Land Use, Section 15-152, Mobile Food Vendors to implement standards for mobile food vendors and related sections. Take a motion, please.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, so this has been on a similar timeline. It's been through the committee, planning board public hearing, council public hearing. There have not been any remaining questions up to this point, so now it's here for adoption. So again, any questions, and I'm happy to answer.
Sophie, do you have a question?
I don't have a question. I know you want to be quick, but I think it would be important for people to know that what this does is takes a use that is currently not, there isn't a permitting process for mobile food vendors, and actually puts something in place that will allow staff to deal efficiently with simple requests and it to go to the planning board for more complicated requests or requests that will have an impact on neighborhoods.
Tyler, if we vote this in, when can people get licenses or permits? to do
It's
this?
30 days after adoption.
Anybody else have any more questions or comments? Thought this solved an issue that came to be. So I will take a vote on order 20-22. All those in favor? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Order 20-23, order calling a municipal referendum election on June 9th, 2020 pursuant to 22 MRSA Section 2656 for the purpose of allowing the voters to consider whether to cease fluoridating the public water supply. I'll take a motion, please.
Move
So
approval.
move. Second. Wherever we are. Yes.
So I actually have invited two people here today. Boyd Smith is the superintendent of the Orono VZ Water District, and he has told me he will back me up. I think that means you better do a good job, Sophie. And then Matt Atchison is the citizen that brought this to my attention that got the whole ball rolling. So I have invited him as well. So the reason we're here is that I received an email from Matt asking if the town council would consider the question of removing fluoride from the public water supply. As a town manager who really respects boundaries, I immediately sent him to the Orono VZ Water District and told them that it was their issue to deal with. And Boyd sent it right back to me because fluoride is a unique piece of legislation that actually takes the question of whether to add or to stop adding fluoride from a public water supply out of the hands of the people that are appointed or elected to run water systems and vests it directly with the voters. So back in the early 1960s, before Orono kept complete voting records, we know that it went to a town meeting in Orono and we assume VZ with the question of whether or not the residents wanted to add fluoride to the public water supply. We assume that that was an affirmative vote. I talked with Dennis Cross and he remembers the vote. And we've been in that position since about 1961 or 62. And what we're adding to the system in Orono is actually hydrofluorosilicic acid. There we go, hydrofluorosilicic acid. So when the question came to me, it really is posed. I went and I spoke with the water district, and the water district does not take a position on whether or not it should add fluoride. But we did receive a letter that said they too have fielded several inquiries and think, given that so much time has passed and science has perhaps changed a bit, that this might be a very good time to ask the voters again. Because the Orono VZ Water District is serves a combination of two communities, state law is very clear that Orono and VZ would have to call simultaneous elections. So tonight, the VZ Town Council is also considering whether it wishes to call an election. if you were to call the election, you would sign the warrants for it in March, which would officially call it. We would hold a public hearing, one in VZ and one in Orono in April. Absentee ballots would be available in late April, I think on the 28th, the day after the tentative date for Orono's public hearing. And the vote would happen in June. Now, this is a vote where every voter in Orono and VZ are given the opportunity to cast ballots, and it is a majority of all the votes cast. It doesn't matter what combination. If one community voted it completely down, but the other one voted it up with more, could get 51% or a majority of the ballots cast. That's the position it will go. So it's the one struggle that I see is getting factual information out to the community. It will be, I think, Orono and VZ towns working together to try to do that. The water district really wants to maintain its neutrality.
So Sophie, would this be kind of an opt-in, opt-out vote, or is it like how would it be worded?
The wording would be essentially just like you saw in the calling of the election. It is a straight up question of, do you want to remove or stop putting fluoride into the public water supply? It's not tricky.
Just straightforward.
Yep.
Okay, good.
In my 3 years on council, I haven't had a lot of opportunities to send things to referendum. And my only major experience with this is we've been discussing sending retail marijuana to referendum. And we have a year behind us of meetings and information and research and experts. When I made the decision to say I want to send this to referendum because I think that we've had a lot of public education and people have had a chance, the public's had a chance to weigh in multiple times, and I felt very confident that it was time to send it to referendum. Maybe this is just that I haven't had other referendum experiences, but I don't know anything at all about the pros and cons of fluoride in the water. There are a lot of things that I don't even know. So for me to say, send this to referendum, yes or no, I'm probably one of the most, in terms of like the whole community, being on council, I'm extremely plugged into the issues and what's going on. And I don't know how I would vote on that question. And I don't feel like, is it enough time to educate? So maybe my question is more about the referendum process and what is considered normal in the time frame for educating the public before the council decides to send an issue to referendum.
So I would say if it were public policy that the council was putting out there, like, for example, the marijuana question, I think what has taken all that time is for you to get to a place that council has agreement. And there was a very wide swath of what was available, what you needed to kind of get through in the spectrum of where your decision could be. That there was an awful lot of time doing that. When you look at this question, the state legislature, in its wisdom of adopting this particular language, does not really, they're not vesting any power with council to do anything. So when you think about it, can we put a question to the voters that says, here are the pros and here are the cons, and you make your decision? I don't know that the state law requires one public hearing at least 10 days before the election. And we've backed that up to say, we want the public hearing before the absentee ballots are even available. And I don't know how much more we can do than what would be a one-night informational meeting that's not, for us, would not be scheduled as part of a regular board meeting, because then the experts that I would need to be here are going to be, like Boyd is going to be down in VZ on April 13th when we would normally have our meeting. So we're going to have to do it off cycle, which then means we'll have to do some promotion of where that information is available, put information on our website. But I don't know what more I can do other than do kind of a rinse and repeat, because this is not going to be, council's not going to have a position on it, I don't believe. And this is more a mechanism of council putting it out. So if you said no, we weren't going to call an election, then it gets kind of muddy for us, because Matt can run around and get a whole bunch of signatures, and then we can have a legal discussion over whether or not this is something, because it's not an ordinance and it's not to compel council to do something, is not cut and dry in our charter. So this was kind of by having the district suggest to the town council that this might be a good time for voters to vote. You know, you would hope that people wouldn't vote a position if they weren't informed, but that doesn't always happen. And I know what you're saying, but
So I'm very glad to have that information and that the public has that information about the process. It seems very rash to me, but it also seems like the process is what it is in state law. So
It seems to me basically what we're doing is saying, will we appropriate staff time and the election process for this? Not really, do we have any opinion whatsoever? I have a couple of people in the audience that would like to speak. If you, Susan?
Hello, Susan Whitmore. I'm kind of fuming at the moment about this topic because, excuse me, that was not intentional. Actually, this topic did arise, the topic of fluoridation. It has arisen in Orono before Ms. Maynard was elected. I'm forgetting the previous council member. Excuse me. The topic arose when, I forgot the person's name, though a female that served council for about a couple of decades and located to Florida. The fluoridation did arise, and I spoke at council in opposition of such. I might have also written to council members, informing them of the information that I found pertaining to fluoridation, which was a health program that was instituted, I think it was in the UK. And it's usually promoted to be kind of like a beneficial thing in terms of to assist in dental concerns, dental cares, to strengthen teeth. And it's usually advertised as being a great idea, you know, just kind of sweeps the issue throughout an entire community, and it's great. However, I'm attempting the reports I read were probably 5 to 10 years ago, though the fluoridation actually caused some terrible health concerns. I think the fluoridation was damaging people's livers, might even been causing cancer. The health issues were very serious. And part of my reason for fuming is I informed people years ago of such. So to say this topic hasn't arisen since the 60s is a stinking pile being handed to me. I'll firmly say that.
Thank you.
My plate's full. It's overheat. So I obviously strongly urge to just get rid of that. I mean, I'm tired of buying bottled water, you know, but also the water, according to reports of water conditions, I mean, the Orono water, the water of this vicinity already has, I think it was 6 carcinogens. And I think those carcinogens are being caused, if I'm remembering correctly, the chemicals in the water currently is due to car pollution.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Does anyone else wish to speak? Right. Sophie, do you have anything to add to this?
No, just to say that when I say it hasn't come up, I meant there were no elections.
Okay. All right. Any other counselors?
Did you want me to give my thoughts, Sophie, or?
That's up to you.
Yeah, sure. Hello, I'm Matt. I brought it up to Sophie, and Sophie was kind enough to bring it up to you. So I'm a business person. I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to speak as a dentist, although my dad was one. So I heard fluoride as a kid. So as a business person, I'm super pragmatic. Fluoride hit my radar when I had a serious. Oh, sure. Okay. Is it recorded or something? Or yeah, gotcha. So my niece was a student at UMaine Augusta. They got the dental clinic there. Yep. So I was her first patient. She called me and said, "Uncle Matt, I need a patient." And I said, "I've been telling you your whole life, you need more patients." She's like, "No, I need a real patient, you know." So I was her very first patient in the dental school. That means sitting in the chair for 4 to 6 hours. So naturally, I'm on my phone sending emails for 4 hours. At one point, I swallowed. She said to me, "Oh, Uncle Matt, you shouldn't have done that." I was like, what do you mean? She goes, that was fluoride. You shouldn't have swallowed. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's in toothpaste, right? You should be able to swallow it. She's like, well, it's probably okay, but you really shouldn't have done that. I was sick for like 5 days. I mean, literally stomach aches, severe mental fog, fatigue, that sort of stuff. So at that point, I started to think, what the heck is this stuff? So I started to research fluoride, and quite a few little things came up. So here's a couple things. Is it okay if I approach? Yep. So this is from Harvard Medical Center. Oh, sure. So Harvard Medical Center did a study a number of years ago. It was a metadata study where they looked at like 32, I believe the number was, different fluoride IQ studies, and they found the average impact to a developing kid was a loss of 7 IQ points from too much fluoride. Okay. So that's a fairly significant thing. Here's another. Is it okay if I approach again? Yep. So this gentleman here has got a PhD in chemistry and toxicology. It's a pretty good, thick summary. I'll just give it to council so you have something to look at. Okay. So bottom line, let's actually go through a couple of those, if that's okay. So one thing, this gentleman, he's a retired college professor, PhD chemistry and toxicology. If you look at his point number 1 when you get it, he makes a lot of points. I'll just go over a couple. One thing he mentions is fluoride is the only chemical added to the water for purpose of medical treatment. So every other chemical that's put in the water, Boyd, you can hopefully back me up, or just cough twice if I'm wrong. Okay. All other stuff that's added to the water is to treat the water to make it safe to drink, right? Or to add minerals or such. So fluoride is the only thing that's added as a medicine. Part of the challenge of that is the dose can't be controlled, right? If I'm an athlete and he's not an athlete, or maybe he is, I might drink a lot more water than he does. We're about the same size, but maybe I'm drinking 50% more water. Well, now I'm getting 50% more fluoride. How do we know that's safe, right? If you're a little baby and you're drinking formula, babies drink percentage of their body weight a heck of a lot more than grown adults do. So how do we know the baby's not getting way more fluoride than they should? The answer is we don't, right? Would you agree? Yep. Okay. So that was point number 1 and 3. We'll just go through a couple more. So number 7, I think, is pretty interesting. He makes the point that the level of natural fluoride in mother's milk is super, super low. So if a kid is raised on formula because the mother works, or maybe she doesn't have time to pump, or whatever the deal is, that baby might be getting 300 times more fluoride than what they would get in mother's milk. That's a lot.
300 times. That is a lot. Okay. Another one, point number 8, that's interesting to me. So fluoride accumulates in the body. So healthy kidneys, this is his words, again, I'm just a business guy. I don't know this stuff, but he's got a PhD in chemistry, so I'll trust him. He's saying that healthy kidneys excrete 50 to 60% of the fluoride you ingest, and the rest of it gets accumulated in your body, okay? Stored. Number 19, that's a few more pages down there. He's making the case that he thinks children are being overexposed to fluoride. So remember the Harvard Medical Center study we just looked at, where they're saying, their words, not ours, up to 7 IQ points on average are being lost by kids who are overexposed to fluoride, okay? 20, next page, number 20. The highest doses of fluoride are getting to bottle-fed babies. We just talked about that, okay? A couple other ones we'll go through if that's okay. 22, there's some evidence in his case, in addition to Harvard's, that fluoride may damage the brain. I'm quoting it. It's apparent that fluorides have the ability to interfere with the functions of the brain. Animal experiments show fluoride accumulates in the brain and alters mental behavior in a manner consistent with a neurotoxic agent. In total, there have now been over 100 animal experiments showing the fluoride can damage the brain and impact learning and behavior. That's not great. Number 23, fluoride, and again, you know, like Harvard already told us, fluoride may lower IQ. There's been, I'm sorry, it wasn't 32, it was 33. There's now been 33 studies from China, Iran, India, and Mexico that have reported an association between fluoride exposure and reduced IQ. In my research, for what it's worth, I found that China and India are more focused on getting fluoride out of the water, and we're focused on putting it into the water. So I asked myself, it's 180-degree opposite policy there. What are we doing right, or what are they doing wrong? Right? Because somebody's doing the wrong thing there. The difference is they're studying it and we're not. Okay, I think there's one more I wanted to tell you. Let's look. Okay. It's a big packet. You can look through it. I thought I had one more, but I don't. Okay, do you mind if I share some things? Okay, so this kind gentleman here was nice enough to share some photos of me that I'm going to share with you. Unfortunately, they're black and white, and it doesn't show as well. So I can certainly send you the color ones. So one of the things that Boyd and I have talked about in our conversations is that in addition to our concern, can I keep talking? In addition to our concerns about the safety of fluoride, it's creating a maintenance problem for him at the plant. So that's a picture of pumps that are coated with a white material that, based on what we've talked about, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, no amount of scrubbing removes the white material. So we're ingesting, well, I should say 70% of the US population is ingesting water that creates this extreme white powder all over the machinery that Boyd and his team can't remove. That's not wonderful, right? So the next set of pictures here that Boyd was kind enough to share is a door in the water plant covered in white powder. It's a door in a window covered in white powder. So it's so much fluoride powder in the air that it's covering the door. I can tell you, and this is something you can try at home, if you take a dehumidifier and you put city water into it, run the dehumidifier, guess what you're going to get at the end of it? You're going to get a white powder. Fluoride, right? Okay, last thing, or last pictures. Can you say it? Hydrofluoric. Hydrofluorosilic acid. Yeah. That one, that acid. So that's a picture of the water tank in the, that contains a please, one more time. Oh, the drum, the fluoride. Can we just call it the fluoride? That'd be so much better. Okay. All right. Unfortunately, the resolution on it didn't get me close enough to say do not ingest it. So I went and pulled the material data safety sheets. These are interesting. Let's look at a few things from the material data safety sheets from fluorosilicic acid. I can say it if I don't say hydro. As soon as I throw hydro in, it's over. Okay, couple of fun facts. If it comes in contact with your skin, you're supposed to remove all contaminated clothing and shoes, wash your skin with soap and large amounts of water for at least 20 minutes. So if this touches your skin, you need to wash it for 20 minutes. And we're drinking it, obviously in far diluted quantities, okay? Inhalation, if you inhale it, if his team, did you guys put a mask on? Yep, so his team puts a mask on and gloves, I assume? Yep. Did you guys put a biosuit like some of them do or no? Yep. Okay, so they don't go as far as I've seen some of them do. So they're wearing a respirator and gloves to apply this to the water. And their instructions are, if they inhale it, they are to remove to fresh air and rest in half upright position. If you're not breathing from breathing the stuff in, give artificial respiration. If breathing is difficult, give oxygen. This is the manufacturer's material data sheet. Ingestion, don't ingest. You don't need to induce vomiting, but if you swallow it, wash out your mouth with water, provided person is conscious. So if you're still conscious after you drink it, you need to wash it out. And you can go through it all. It talks about it's a very corrosive material, quite toxic. Would you agree? Okay, now obviously, this is in its pure form, not diluted. So as it gets added to the water supply, it's being significantly diluted. But as you read through this, starts to make you wonder if maybe Harvard isn't on to something. About 8 years ago, look, you'd know better than I would. So 8 years ago, I think the level was like a 2.0. What is that, parts per million or parts per microgram? 1.0. And then it got lowered to So the regulatory bodies, are you sure it wasn't higher than that? Okay. He knows. I'll trust him. So they dropped it 30% recently. So what was considered safe a few years ago, now they're saying, oops, let's go 30% lower. Okay. All right. So there's just some information about that. So after my illness, which lasted for about a week from drinking, obviously really, really concentrated form of fluoride that was used in the dentist office, I just got off of fluoride. After I did my research and started reading Toronto Medical Center and Harvard Public Policy Center and a bunch of other articles in India and China, I just said, you know what, I'm a business guy. I'm very pragmatic. I'll try anything. If it doesn't work, I'll stop. I said, I'm going to try no fluoride and just see. So I stopped using toothpaste that had fluoride. I put water filters in and we tried it. And within a couple of weeks, I noticed tons more energy, better memory, less brain fog, huge improvement to my acid stomach because that was a big problem I was having. And just bottom line, I had more energy. So I could actually move on and try to meet my potential in life, right? Instead of just sort of wandering around, I was up and at it and doing more stuff, okay? And like I said, I'm very pragmatic. If it didn't work, guess what? I would have taken the filter and thrown it in the trash and gone and drank my city water. But it did work, so I kept doing it. In that time, I've shared my thoughts with some colleagues, family. I had a tenant recently who told me that she and her husband were expecting a baby. And she and I talked about the water quality. So I offered as her landlord, I said, look, if you would like, do your research. If you would like me to buy you a reverse osmosis filter for the apartment, I will. Those are super expensive. There's absolutely no economic benefit to me for doing that. I share that because that's how strongly I feel about fluoride, that I'm willing to spend thousands of dollars to put a filter into somebody else's house for them. She did her research and her husband, they came back and said, yeah, we'd like you to put it in. Let me read you a text message she sent me this morning. She said, hey, I asked her, I said, look, how's it been going with the filter? Do you have any thoughts to share? You know, I'm meeting with the town tonight. She said, hey, just wanted to tell you that since drinking the fluoride-free water, I have felt better than ever. I feel more awake and clear-headed. I said, how is your energy level? And she said, a lot higher. We both feel energized and great. Okay. That's after using a reverse osmosis filter like we use. Okay. Two of the folks who work for me also moved to filtering their city water, and I will just read you their feedback. One of them said, his name is Greg, he said, we're still cranking along with our zero water filter. Been interesting to have all my kids grabbing more water more often. I used to have a hard time getting them to drink water, haha. I don't know what's funny, but he said, haha. Anyway, I wanted to share with you that I'm seeing the same benefits you described. I didn't tell anyone about the benefits, just that I was filtering the water, and I noticed a difference in everyone about 4 days into it. I thought that was too soon, but the difference increased and leveled out after about a month. It's weird, but all of us are just more energetic. It's a recurring theme. Sharper, focused on things. You can sense it and see it around the house. My kids, even my 11-year-old, mentioned their energy levels increasing, and it was only then that I mentioned the benefits of removing fluoride. Thanks again for sharing your thoughts. It got me to try a filter, and the benefits have been tangible. I had no idea fluoride really caused so much fogginess. Okay. Last one. I'm a people person, so I want to share the people stories. Hey Matt, this is another gentleman who works for me. Hey Matt, I really appreciate you recommending that water filter that removes fluoride and other junk. After using that straight for the past 2 months, I felt more clear-headed. I can focus better, and I'm much more positive than I was. That's huge. I can look back now and see how tired I constantly felt and how my outlook was much more gloomy. It wasn't overnight that I felt this way, but I know how I feel now and how I felt pre-filter, and there's quite a difference. I'm glad I tried this experiment. As long as they keep dumping fluoride in my water, I'll keep using this thing to get it out, okay? So like I told you a couple times before, I'm a business person. If it doesn't work, I don't do it, right? This works, and you can do it. And I'll tell you what, I'll buy you a filter, and you can try it. And if 4 weeks later you come back and you tell me you don't feel better, I will be shocked. So look, that's the bottom line. That's why I brought this to Sophie. Last point I want to make, okay. I went to my dentist 2 weeks ago. Got my teeth cleaned. This is the toothpaste he gave me. I'm going to read you from the back. Keep out of reach of children. If more than used for brushing is accidentally swallowed, get medical help or contact a poison control center right away. This is Tom's fluoride-free toothpaste. It does not say anything of the such. Okay, that's the fluoride. Okay, so I wouldn't have brought this to Sophie if I wasn't really, really confident that this is a serious issue. It's so serious that I'm going to go against my capitalistic ways if we don't have the vote. I've got 28 apartments. I'm probably going to spend around about $28,000 putting filters into all of my tenants' apartments. That's how serious I think this issue is. So hopefully that will leave an impression. Thank you.
Matt, very much. So
I'd love to get the toothpaste back when you're done. I'm really cheap, okay?
So council is not making a decision one way or the other on the fluoride. It was interesting to hear your comments, and we will all read the information along with the public to get educated on it. But
Can I just ask for one complete packet of his material so that I can give it to Nancy. She can scan it in and we'll create a folder for you.
okay. So council, before I ask for a vote on order 20-23, are there any more comments or questions for Sophie?
My only comment is that, I mean, it seems pretty straightforward with state law that, I mean, we're not, yeah, I hope that the public has time to engage in the education and that.
Can I add one more thing on that? Is that okay? So you and I talked about potentially renting out the community center. Is that something we could do to put on some education?
So what I've said is that anything the town does, we would have to make sure that we are balanced pros and cons. I have told Matt is willing to do just about anything. I have told him that as an individual, he can rent out the community center, he can put on whatever kind of information he wants to. But from the town's perspective, I've got to be careful to make sure we're not going one way or the other. And
What if I rented it out one night for pro and I rented it out one night for con and
Well, no, so
you guys
Matt,
can pick
with
the con?
respect, what I
Yep.
meant when I said that was we have an excellent staff who are very adept at going out and finding information that encompasses everything on all
Right.
sides. They present it to us in a neutral fashion. They're, they this is their job and they're very good at it. And so what I meant by that education is
Gotcha.
they're usually the ones who in this public forum
Sure.
would do research and present to council and to the public. And they do a great job at that. So,
Gotcha.
so that's, so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't mean
Okay.
community forums.
Sure.
I mean, the work that staff would be doing.
Yep. Okay, that makes sense. I thought you were concerned maybe there'd be not enough interest or something. So we could gin up interest by doing things like that. But you're saying there'd be like a public forum where your staff would present. I see. Yep. Perfect. Good.
Just one quick thing about the vote. I was at a convention. One thing quick about the vote. I was at a convention last Wednesday and I talked to Stephanie Moranci from PUC. And she said that you didn't have to look back at the 60s. It didn't matter how it happened. It's now on voting it in or out.
Well, we're well researched.
So, well, that's what I said. So basically I found that out.
So I don't particularly have an opinion on this one way or the other, but I think that it's been a long time since the community spoke to the issue, and I'm fine with giving them an opportunity to speak to it again.
Agree.
All right. Well, then I'll take a formal vote. All those in favor of putting this on the ballot 2023 passes unanimously. So it will be on the ballot. Please watch the website for dates of public hearings.
just as a question, Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
would the council like, if we're gonna do the formal signing of the warrants, we often do that as a consent item. Given the lack of information out there, would you like us to at least have high level, here are the arguments for, here are the arguments against, and put this on new business in March so that you could at least have
Sure.
that? Okay. Nancy will make a note of that.
All right, moving on to
Oh, yeah.
Order 20.
You're gonna need that a little bit,
Yeah.
not a little.
Order 2024, order authorizing the town manager to purchase a striker power load assembly for the ambulance number 259 from Sugarloaf Ambulance Rescue Vehicles of Wilton, Maine, in an amount not to exceed $21,000 with funds drawn from the ambulance reserve. I'll take a motion, please.
Move approval.
Second.
Councilors, this is the power load system. It's a sister to the power load system that we purchased in the new ambulance. The intent of the device is to enable us to more rapidly and safely get patients into the back of the ambulance. The stretchers that we have now are currently relatively heavy. The power load system takes all of that lifting weight off for us. It mechanically loads the patient cot into the back of the ambulance. So in turn, it reduces the likelihood of job-related injuries, specifically back injury, twists, sprains, strains. It also makes it safer for the patient so that there's not an accidental drop that occurs, or in the event that there's some type of motor vehicle collision, it's a more sturdy cot mounting system than what we currently have in the ambulance. It's more likely to keep the cot in place and prevent additional injury from the patient being thrown or those types of occurrences.
Great. Anyone wish to comment?
I like that we had the opportunity to see it in action. I think that really makes a difference. So yeah, thank you for that.
Well, we saw a demonstration. We didn't see it.
I just want to, I'd like to speak to that. I did not go over, but about 5 years ago, I had a knee accident and was hauled a good distance down some steps in a non-striker system. So I say, by God, get that thing, because that was one heck of a ride.
Yeah, it was very interesting, very informative.
Yeah, I also appreciate that. I understand that especially around budget season, folks will come in and they will look at the amounts of money that are spent on individual items and raise questions about that. And it's always very helpful to council to be able to have a complete and thorough answer to give back to the community and say, yes, it looks like a lot of money for one item. However, when you consider the savings over time, both in financial costs, but also just the personnel's health and safety, the safety of the patient, I mean, it's well worth it. So I'm happy that we had that opportunity.
Any more questions or comments? All right, make it easy. Order 20-24, all those in favor? Passes unanimously. Order 20-25, order authorizing the grant application for an $11,000 non-matching grant from the Greg Sinise Foundation, and if awarded, acceptance of funds to install an industrial-grade washer and dryer to clean the fire department protective outer garments. I will take a motion, please.
Move approval, Gary Sinise, just to.
Second.
Sorry, what did I say? Greg?
So the Gary Sinise Foundation, for those of you who don't know who Gary Sinise is, he's an actor, and probably the biggest role that I can think of him in is Lieutenant Dan in Forrest Gump, for those of you who have seen that movie. So sometime around 10 years ago, Gary Sinise started a foundation that originally started, I believe, to support members of the military, those coming home, those that found themselves in financial crisis, were injured abroad, those types of things. And he's since expanded that into helping out public safety folks. So that's why we're looking at this particular grant. To date, that foundation's awarded about 450 grants for what we're looking at, which would be an equipment for fire departments. What we're looking to do is purchase an industrial washer and dryer. Currently, we have a higher end residential units, if you will, that are reaching the end of their service life. In washing our protective outer garments, that's the turnout gear that we wear when we go on fire calls or we wear on very bad medical calls, has become really instrumental in reducing our exposure to carcinogens that we see inside fire environments, getting bloodborne pathogens off our clothing, those types of things. So the intent is to replace the current equipment that we have with this upgraded equipment. It'll provide for better extraction of those, the carcinogens and the other contaminants, so that when we redon that later on, that exposure component is gone. It's a risk reduction. Cancer is a very big thing for us. That's really the biggest factor for us, is trying to limit that risk and prevent something occurring, while we're on duty or sometime after we retire or leave the job.
Anyone have any questions?
Quick question, and maybe you don't know this off the top of your head, but maybe you do, so that it could be illustrative for the public. But so it's a matching grant. Were you to receive it, the town would be responsible for matching that fund, or no? Okay. Non-matching. Oh, I didn't. Okay, I missed that part. So that's great. Yeah. Okay. Never mind. My question's canceled.
Great. Anyone else have any other questions or comments? How long will it be before you would hear?
That I don't know. I think once we submit the grant application, we'll find out a time frame after that. I also don't know what the prioritization is yet, if we would be ahead of other programs or other programs would be ahead of us. As soon as I have that information, I can certainly give it to the town manager and ask her to push it out to you.
Great, thank you.
So I'd just like to say I appreciate the fact that our fire department is looking at grant opportunities to purchase important equipment. That's a good thing.
All right, I'll take a vote on order 2025. All those in favor? Passes unanimously.
Thank
Good
you.
luck with it. Order 2026, order appointing Laura Mitchell to fill the remainder of an unexpired 5-year term ending December 31st, 2023 on the Orono VZ Water District Board of Trustees. Take a motion, please.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right. We met with Laura earlier, and I was very impressed with her credentials and her person. Anyone else have any questions or comments?
Very fortunate to have such a well-qualified candidate.
Yeah, great. All right, I will take a vote on Order 2026. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Council committee and representative reports. We'll start down with Sam this time.
Hi, yes, we met on the 16th of January, the Community Development Committee meeting. We had two items. One was the draft land use ordinance related to excavation and filling of land, which stemmed from concern of a project that was done further down Main Street. We had robust discussion that has now gone to, after being quite thoroughly exhausted, it has gone to Planning Board. Thank you. And we had some very great public comment with that too. It was good to see Jeff Gordon again. And the other item was what we discussed tonight with the possibility, the request to remove fluoride from public water supply that has landed here and has made the rounds that we just decided.
Finance Committee meeting in January had to be canceled due to a conflict with our staff, or our staff having a conflict. However, no, we did not. However, we are meeting tomorrow, 4 o'clock here.
Megan?
The Comp Plan Implementation Committee met on February 3rd. The first major item we discussed was the Village Residential District concept. We had looked at a little bit of language. We were talking about issues such as would it be deed restricted? What does owner occupied mean? We wanted to talk more about the number of unrelated persons that may or may not be involved, parking issues. So ultimately, we're going to see this brought back at February workshop for all of council to learn and discuss. And we are in the what if phase. So we're going to try to figure out all the different scenarios. What if this kind of a person wanted to rent this kind of a place or convert their home into this kind of a thing? And how would that work? So the more what ifs we can give, Kyle, the better this process will go. So that will be interesting. So we'll see that in February at our workshop. We also talked about with Parks and Rec about recreation trails. We got an update on that. And this is the process by which we would hope to connect this. Is it 30 mile loop? That goes primarily through Orono, but also up into Old Town and down into VZ, so that you could do a circular loop on the trails. Mitch is going out to talk to property owners now. That's the next phase in this, and talking to them about easements or licenses to allow revocable licenses to allow the public access onto the properties and also allow the town to maintain those trails. We did have a manager's report reminding us that the $25 late fee that people will be paying if they didn't register their dogs in time has nothing to do with us. That is a state requirement, and we cannot do anything about it. So if people are upset, I apologize, but it's not us that's charging you $25. We also have a new person down at the counter, Danielle. Her first day was a trial by fire because it was tax due date. And that was day one, and it was a lot, but she handled it well. And so say hi to her if you see her down there. OTO fiber, the spools are out for the pilot. And so if you see these trucks blocking up the road, maybe it's a little inconvenient, but it's for a good cause because we're going to try out better internet access. So that's good. The Orono Historical Society met also this month, and one of the major things to come out of that meeting is they're going to try out a 4 o'clock meeting time instead of a 1 o'clock meeting time to see if it allows more access for folks to come. So 4 p.m. on the first Wednesday of every month. And as always, even if you can't go, you can donate $10 and be a member and support a really great organization.
Cheryl? Jerry?
Just a quick little update up on the Orono birthday celebration here in March. I just kind of caught a little bit of it this time. I had other commitments, but Belle and I sat and started to kind of look at a little bit differently about the 5K race, and it may end up being something more morphed into a summary type thing as we're looking for things to kind of progress throughout the entire year, just for safety and weather conditions and stuff like that. And kind of we did a pool or a questions to people about what they thought of it, and so that was a concern. If you haven't had an opportunity, Melissa Garrity's been a really big asset to us as a community, a citizen in our community, helping with the look of stuff, and she's been working on things such as the taste of Orono, what the advertisement would look like, and it looks quite amazing. So if you see her, tell her thank you. At this point, we're really focusing to move forward pretty fast. The town's website will be having a link here pretty quick to kind of give you more up-to-date access to what is actually being said, what's going on. I've been out on the road checking with a bunch of businesses here and it looks right now like majority of who I've seen, or I should say all of the people that I've actually spoken with about the taste of Orono are excited, really want to be able to have an opportunity to talk to our community members that may have not been to an establishment, a food establishment, and may, get to understand what they're about. So we're kind of moving along pretty fast with that.
Great. Can't wait till March. All right. Future agenda items and items of concern. Sam, Jen, Tom, Megan, Cheryl?
This is not an item of concern, but what I haven't mentioned tonight is the tween and teen night is starting to pick up steam, and I've been in contact with teachers at Orono High School and other people. So there'll be a poster. I have a student who's designing a poster right now that will be around town pretty soon, and that's for our teen activists in town who want to learn a little bit more about municipal government, and that's March 16th.
Terry? All right. Public petitions? Don't think we have any. Public comments? Both of you? Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to say a few quick words. My name is Cameron Hamill. I'm a student at UMaine, go Black Bears, and a student senator at UMSG Inc. I was recently elected Orono Town Council Liaison, which is a position I'm very excited for. I'm thankful for this opportunity, and I look forward to coming here every second Monday. So you'll see my face around.
Great. What's your name again? I didn't
Cameron.
Cameron, we really appreciate liaison's input, so anytime, you're always welcome. So, Susan. Great.
Susan Whitmore. This one's, I'm just taking it apart. Used to do demolition. Haven't quite gotten that out of me. Though simply to simply say to all those festive romantics out there, happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you very much. All right, with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Yes. So moved.
Right, all those in favor? Thank you very much. I think Nancy might have a couple of things for us to sign. No, nothing to sign. All right. Have a good evening.
Cameron? Don't go too far. I won't. Do you have contact information?